The night was painted in silver and sorrow when Cole Madden rode into the dying town of Rosehill, his horse weary, his heart heavier than his saddle. The saloon lights had long faded, and the streets whispered of ghosts that used to laugh there. He wasn't looking for company, just a roof, a little warmth, and maybe, if the Lord still cared, some peace. The wind carried the scent of rain and roses, and that's when he saw it. A lone house on the hill, a lamp glowing behind half-drawn curtains, a place that looked both alive and broken. When he knocked, the door opened to a woman with hair like dusk and eyes that had forgotten how to shine. Her name was Elara Wynn, the widow of the town's late sheriff, a woman people pitied but never dared to visit. "You'll catch cold out there," she said quietly and stepped aside. He entered the house that smelled faintly of roses and old grief. There was a fire burning low in the hearth, and on the wall hung a faded portrait of a man in uniform, her husband. Cole removed his hat and stood awkwardly near the door, the way lonely men do when they forget what comfort feels like. "I'll be gone by sunrise," he murmured. But she only nodded and poured coffee into 2 chipped mugs. For a while, the only sound was the crackling of the fire and the ticking of a clock that seemed afraid to move forward. She asked him where he was from, and he said nowhere worth remembering. That answer made her smile sadly, the kind of smile that says, "Me too." As the storm rolled outside, she began to talk, not the small talk of strangers, but the kind that comes from years of silence. She spoke of her husband, how he used to sing to her when the world was kind, how his voice echoed in her dreams long after his grave went cold. "They say time heals," she said softly, "but it only teaches you how to hide the wound." Cole looked into her eyes and saw something that scared him, reflection. "Maybe wounds ain't meant to heal," he said. "Maybe they're meant to remind us we're still alive." His words landed like rain on a dry field. She looked at him then, really looked, and something in her chest stirred that hadn't moved in years. She stood slowly and walked toward the piano by the window, her fingers trembling as she touched the keys. "He taught me to play," she whispered, pressing a single note. "Now I play for ghosts." Cole rose from his chair, walked closer and said quietly, "Then tonight play for the living." Her hands froze, tears filling her eyes, and for a moment time stopped. She turned to him and said, "I don't even remember how." Then came the silence, and heavy, electric, unbearable, the kind of silence that makes 2 people hear their own hearts. She walked past him, her steps slow, deliberate, until she stood by the fire. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Can I tell you something, stranger?" He nodded. "I've been living in this house like a statue, a body without a pulse. Every night I undress, not for comfort, but because it's the only moment I feel human again. But when I look in the mirror, I see nothing but a widow's ghost." She paused, trembling. "So tell me, if I undress before you now, not my body, but my grief, my shame, my loneliness, and will you stay? Will you listen?" Cole didn't breathe for a full second. The weight of her words was heavier than any war he'd fought. He stepped closer, his voice low, steady. "Ma'am, I've seen bodies torn and hearts burned, but I've never seen a soul brave enough to bear itself. If you undress your pain tonight, I'll stay till dawn, not as a man, but as someone who remembers what it's like to feel broken." Her eyes glistened, and in that dim firelight, she let her tears fall like confession. She spoke for hours, about love, betrayal, guilt, and the loneliness that gnawed at her every night. She told him how she still sets a plate for her husband at dinner, how she still speaks to his shadow when the moonlight hits the floor, and as she spoke, Cole felt something shift inside him, the kind of ache that wakes a sleeping heart. He wanted to touch her hand, but didn't. He wanted to kiss her sorrow, but knew that love built on pain needs time to breathe. When the first light of dawn slipped through the curtains, she looked at him and said, "Thank you for staying." He smiled faintly. "You undressed more than grief tonight, ma'am. You showed me what courage looks like." She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "And you showed me what forgiveness feels like." He put his hat back on, walked to the door and turned once more. "The world'll keep hurting us, Elara," he said. "But it don't have to own us." She nodded, watching him disappear into the rising sun, her heart still echoing his words. For the first time in years, she opened the window and let the wind in, not to chase ghosts, but to welcome tomorrow. And to everyone watching this story, if you felt her pain, If you saw a piece of yourself in her tears, don't let it fade here. Subscribe to the channel, join this journey, and help keep stories like this alive. Stories of love, loss, and the strength to start again. Because sometimes the most powerful undressing is when we strip away our silence.